Tomorrow will mark 25 years since the devastating Columbine High School shooting in Littleton, Colorado.
12 students and one teacher were killed when a pair of students opened fire during a school day in what became one of the most high-profile mass shootings in American history. Joining us now for more is author Dave Cullen. He wrote what I believe to be the definitive book on Columbine, which details the events and the stories behind that tragic day. Dave, thanks so much for joining us on what is always a somber occasion when we talk about Columbine. But I want to get your perspective on a couple of things here since that horrific day. According to the AP, as you know, there have been over 600 attacks since 2006 in which 4 more people have died. It did not include the perpetrator. We're talking about mass shootings.
Right.
The American Academy of Pediatrics says that there have been more school shootings in America in the past 5 years than the 20 years prior to that. As Anne-Marie said before we went to commercial, when Columbine happened, everybody in America was shocked. I mean, the last thing that people could probably piece together was Charles Whitman shooting from a tower in the 1960s in Texas. And now we have whole generations of Americans, young people, who live with the possibility of a mass shooting every day. What goes through your mind when you hear numbers like that?
I mean, it is just horrible. And, I have a diagram of it just sort of spiraling out. And, I researched this there's a new preface to my book, a new edition. We found 54 shootings since then where there's evidence, the killers left evidence that they were directly inspired or copying Columbine. And that's just the ones we know. Most people die in the act, so we don't know. And there's at least twice as many of that who tried and didn't. So these people are directly following Columbine, and they're all as a result in Columbine. They're all the 25 years, and they're getting so much worse. And it's our worst cultural export ever because this is going around the world now. Russia's got a huge problem. Finland, Sweden, France, Germany, Canada, Australia. There's several more. There was one. It was a knife attack in Siberia. So this is out of hand and getting worse.
Often when we talk about the victims of school shootings, we talk about the people who have been killed. We talk about the deceased. But the fact of the matter is the victims are also the survivors. I mean, even if you were in the building or near the building, but not close to the shooter, it is trauma that you are living with. You've spoken to some of these survivors, and I don't think there's been a lot of research or study into the impact that this sort of experience has on their lives. But can you tell us a little bit more about some of the survivors that you've spoken to?
Sure. And before I forget, there has been some research when I wrote Parkland with the March for Our Lives kids. An expert on teen PTSD, said, I'm going to give you figures for the prevalence after things like from car crashes to rapes to all sorts of different things. And she said, I'm sure we don't have any data on mass shootings. And she got to me the next day and said, oh, we do have data. People have studying this in the nearly 20 years then since Columbine, and and of course it's very high. But yeah, so the survivors, oh my God. Well, I will give you the sort of good news, bad news, mostly thing, which was the opposite of what I expected. And in general, the kids get past it, the adults don't. And definitely not all. That's not everyone. That's sort of big picture. But the morning after Columbine, I was so unnerved because the day of Columbine, I was there within the first hour. I was one of the first people there. And it was just like what you expect. Chaos, people crying, hugging each other, just emotions through the roof. The next morning was the opposite. Those kids walked around with a blank affect, like they had been lobotomized. And I talked to them. They could all tell me when, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., because it went off like that, like a switch. When they're, and the psychiatrist told me that's when your brain shuts off. So I just thought oh my God, are they going to get over it? And by the way, they started asking me, how long will this last? Will it be okay? Blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know. I'll try to find out. So anyway, so I just thought, oh my God, this may be a lost generation. And I didn't worry too much about the parents, they'll deal like that. And over time, it took about 3 to 5 years for most of the kids to sort of move on and get past it. And the parents of a lot of the victims and a lot of other adults, teachers, got slightly better, but it was just like a slow, the kids were going, 25 years later, one of the people that I'm very close to is an alcoholic, and tomorrow the person's family members will have to bring her home after any one of these apartment or anything. She just gets raging drunk, and they take turns of who's gonna make sure she gets home alive.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. And, not all. Some of them are fine too. But that's the weird thing that I did not expect.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
it's still, as Anne-Marie said, seared into the minds of those of us who were not directly affected. But I can only imagine for the parents of the children who were killed and other family members who lost loved ones during that day. It's something that they have to live with every single day, and it's unimaginable. Except the fact that now there are many more Americans who are in the same boat as those families and those family members of the children and others who survived. Dave, thank you very much. Your book was I read it when it first came out. I'm glad you're updating it today because so much has happened since Columbine. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Vlad and Anne-Marie. Appreciate it.